In the times that we are living in, everybody needs to have a side hustle of sort. It is true, but how come would you be maybe fired for having a side hustle? Is it true that you can be fired if you have a side hustle? Well, my good friends, I've had a side hustle for many years before I actually started my business. It was a side hustle. Yes, remember those days? I used to work for Barclays and I used to be out in Africa, and my side hustle of real estate started, and I got in trouble at one point. And of late, I've just been seeing many people coming through to me to say, TJ, I got in trouble with my HR, I got in trouble with my manager. And I said to myself, whoa, who is the person that can help us to decode, to give us guidance as a community of what should we be doing, of what should we be doing correctly? And I think for many of you, you just think, let me do what I need to do. I know you have to do what you need to do. I know that maybe the numbers are not adding up from a budget perspective. But what is the right thing for us to do? You have a fiduciary role for your employer. You are employed and there's a contract. Within that contract, what does it say? But before we go deep into that conversation, my good friends, what I want us to talk about here is there's other people who are experts in this area. And you know me, I always bring out all these experts so that I can learn and you can learn too. But remember, I'm no longer employed. I'm unemployable. But now, because you are still employed, I'm going to bring in my good friend, and his name is Solomon. You hear me saying Solomon, same thing, right? And brother, how's it going? Welcome.
Thank you very much, my brother, and thank you for the opportunity, for inviting me to the podcast.
Good.
And it's great to see you again.
What is the biggest tip that you can give to anyone right now who has started a side hustle? It's making them a bit of money, whether they are in the public or they're not in the public, but they are employed. What should they do to avoid being fired?
Well, surely, doing a side hustle, it can be a good thing for our economy, for South Africa, but obviously as an employee, employed in a company, your employer expects you to spend most of your time during working hours, let's say the 8 hours or the 9 hours that you work on. Obviously they expect you to be there, so you need to be clear about your side hustle. You need to share with the employer and say, this is what I am doing. If you are new as an employee, say you must stipulate that as you come in within the company and say and be upfront and disclose. Never make it a secret with your employer, since you are earning a salary from the employer.
So Soli, I want to say that I think a lot of us already were shocked with the fact that we need to disclose that.
Yes.
Just explain it to us when you say disclose. Do I need to speak to my supervisor, my manager, my HR? What does disclose mean?
All right. With regards to disclosing, this simply means we're talking about talking to either it can be your supervisor, it can be your manager, it can be the CEO. Like last year I did a case where unfortunately I had to dismiss somebody who was moonlighting inverted commas side hustle.
Right.
So I had to dismiss this guy because the company policy, which he was, he knew and he was very clear of what was expected of him. I had to fire him because he never disclosed. The very same thing to the CEO. So what is important is to understand, the protocols and the processes of, who and how you're supposed to report the side hustle.
Well, my good friends, you might be wondering, who is this guy? Why is he actually talking about side hustles, and what qualifies him for actually to give us this advice that he's giving us? And today's podcast, my good friends, we're going to be talking very much educational. So it's different from the others where we are kind of like giving you some inspiration. I think today you need to grab a pen and paper, replay this a couple of times, especially if you've got a side hustle that you already have at the moment. We're going to go in a little bit deeper. But sorry, my good friends, who are you and what gives you the qualification of us talking about this that is most feared about many people? The moment we start talking about being fired, a lot of people, they check out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So who are you? What's your background, and what qualifies you now to give us this advice?
Thank you. Well, I'm a labor relations specialist, and
Right.
I studied at Wits University, did my undergrad industrial psychology and sociology, which has to do with work
Right.
and employer relationships. And further to that, I went to UJ, University of Johannesburg, where I studied postgraduate diploma in labor law.
Right.
And currently I'm doing my MBA,
My man.
which I should be finishing this year.
Well done.
So thank you. I'm a bit modest, about my qualifications. I feel like it's just too much.
It's who you are.
Yeah, but I've been doing labor relations, labor law for the past. This is going to be my 11th year.
Right.
I've worked in mining industry. I'm now consulting for my business, Sisol Projects or Sisol Group.
Right.
Working with various companies from aviation, mining, cleaning, retail, logistics, you name it. We in various industries. So yeah.
Within your business, you actually can help both sides of the fence. And I think the fence that I would like to speak to is that the employer might not have these policies and procedures in place.
Correct. Yes.
Someone like me, I'm starting off in business, and I just start hiring people. And policy and procedure is something that I'm thinking about. How can you help someone like me? I'm an early starter, but now I've got 10, 15 employees already. And I can see that one is moonlighting.
No, for sure. I mean, as an employer, I do help most of my business, majority of our business is employers.
Right.
Employees, we help them with recruitment, finding the right people for the employer. So
right.
We actually on both sides of the fence, but sometimes people will come to me and say, can you please advise me on this topic or this thing? Mm-hmm. Then I come in and advise, and I normally don't charge anything for that.
Sure.
When I help individuals, but when I help employers, obviously that's our business model.
Right.
So for employers, mostly your startups, startups founders, normally they get into trouble, and this trouble normally they are costly. If you fire somebody without having the policies and things like that, and the processes written down, you definitely ought to have a problem. You'll get taken to CCMA and you have to probably get fined or pay 12 months compensation, things like that. So it's very important as startups. I just say startups, I think it will be the right way to say for people that are starting up. Even big companies, because we have both startups and conglomerates. We work with big and small companies. So for startups, it's important that when you start your business, because you don't have any budget for you to actually put aside for when you lose cases in the CCMA. So what you need to do, and what we do, we collaborate and partner with startups and make sure that they do not lose a case unless if they just want to lose it.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. And you might be wondering why am I having this conversation of the startup?
Yes.
My friends, your business is going to grow. We are going to zoom in today on how you are moonlighting and what the right things you should be doing for you to moonlight, to have your side hustle.
Yes.
But at some point, I didn't think that my businesses would grow to where it is today. And now these are some of the problems that I do have in my business, and people like Solican started helping me. But now here is the conversation that we want to dive in a little bit. So we spoke about the side hustle.
Yes.
From a definition of an employee who is migrating into a business owner, what is a side hustle? Let's define it.
Okay.
Because some people say to me, but it's not a side hustle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it is a side hustle. You're making money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, simply defined, even though it might be. Remember, side hustle is sort of like a new term in South Africa.
Sure.
When I say new, I mean like 10 years, 20 years back. It's not something that people have been doing for many years, or it was coined to say this is a side hustle. But side hustle simply, I'm just going to use a simple definition, which would refer to, a side business or side, let's say side business to supplement the main income. Main income could be from a main business, could be from shares as a shareholder in another business, could mean you are an employee working for X company, and then
so you're being shy to our realistics in our market.
Hey, my friends, I'm very sorry that I have to disturb the amazing conversation that is happening. But I thought, let me just jump in here and give you a little bit of a good word of a service that I utilize, which is called Expelo. You might have never heard of them before, but basically what Expelo is, all of us who are here, we do property investments. And as and when we do property investments, we have properties that we have and we take insurance on that. And we also have tenants that we've got. And at some point, these tenants tend not to pay. It's a reality in our market. At a national level, they generally say around about 20% of tenants fail to pay. If they fail to pay, what is the recourse? You probably now need to evict them, isn't it? And the cost of evicting anybody, even the going through of that process, can be extremely tedious. And my friends, that's where Expelo comes in. I utilize Expelo myself in all my properties that I've got. The Expelo company, what they basically do is that I said to myself when I was trying to explain this to my wife the other day, and I said to her, babe, Expelo to us is the big brother that we pay on a monthly basis, and as and when we ever have a delinquent tenant, a tenant that is not paying, we can always call on Expelo, and they will do the eviction for us. We don't need to worry about it. They'll handle all the legal fees. They will do everything in ensuring that this tenant is evicted. So my friends, I just thought that it is unfair of me not to share with you this information. So on the screen right now, it's the details of basically how you can reach out to Expelo and you can claim your discount. Well, you might not be able to get the entire link because it's on the screen, but if you have to click in the description of the video, you'll be able to see the same link that is in here that says expelo.link/TJ Tribe, and that's to get you your discount. So my friends, don't be caught with your pants down with your tenants and they become delinquent and you fail to evict them. Just go to Expelo. But for now, let us go back to that interesting conversation that we were having. Thanks for watching.
Selling Tupperware. How about let's start from there? Is it a side hustle?
If you're selling Tupperware and you are employed, that is a side hustle.
Because in the workplace, we see all of these ladies bringing in their Tupperwares in the workplace. Aren't they not putting themselves in a predicament?
No, they are, surely, without a doubt.
Herbalife?
Herbalife is a side hustle. You are generating an income, and mostly it's even worse when you bring those things to your workplace. Because essentially when you do that, it means you are selling during your employer's time.
Right.
And knowing all employers are jealous of that because they're paying for it.
Right.
So the moment a person comes to the workplace and sell those things during the employer's time, that is fraud.
Oh, wow.
That is fraud. You're defrauding your employer.
Wow, that's a big term now.
Yeah.
I think let's take it from another notch higher. We started talking about, specific things that we see in our workplaces. But let's go to what a lot of people know for this channel, which is they're wanting to do real estate or they're doing real estate. And they are buying a second property or 5-6 properties later on. can that be defined as a side hustle?
Well, with that, there is I'm not a property expert like you, but what I can tell you is that there should be a difference between somebody who's buying a property as an investment,
right,
and somebody who buys property as an investment converted to a business.
right.
So, in essence, if you, let's say you buy a property and somebody is running it for you, or a company is running it for you,
Yeah,
that protects you from you being that person, the anchor of that operation running. So therefore, you investing a lot of time in that. You don't be the same as somebody who has got 6 units. Now they have to, leave or apply for leave to go and fix a tap leak or things like that. Yeah.
so there's a gray area there, but the reality is that once you start in real estate, we've got the thing that's called the real estate's got a bug.
Yes.
Once it bites you, you want more and more and more.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you find yourself now looking on property 24 even during working hours. You start now calling estate agents to make appointments, and it just, I don't want to say it gets addictive. Addictive is sometimes it's negative, but this is a positive addiction. And in our community, at average, someone owns maybe 3 properties, right? And with 3 properties comes tenants, management, and all of these things. It's slowly becoming a business.
No, for sure.
And now it borders on the side of being it a side hustle. And actually, we in the community, we are big advocates of don't buy properties in your name, buy it in a business.
Definitely.
And which basically means that the definition of the side hustle is kicked in now. Because now you have a business that you're running on the side.
Of course.
Right?
No, I completely agree with you on that one.
So,
Surely,
yeah, go ahead.
Surely, because the moment you open that entity.
Right.
Remember, a business is an entity.
Yes.
Which is an entity outside you, being a person, an employee, father, a mother, whatever that is. Now, that entity cannot run on its own.
Correct.
It requires a body, a person to run.
Yeah.
The moment you have an entity that doesn't have somebody running but under your name, now that's where it becomes critical and important for one to recognize now that they are somewhere lighting the moonlighting.
Right,
Yeah.
right. What should be the rightful thing to do at that particular time? So you've gone on to CIPC, and XYZ is the company name that you have now reserved, and bingo, the certificate comes out. You are now director. And you know you qualify for 2 million, you are going to the bank, you know you've got X amount of money, you are going to buy that property.
Yes.
What's the rightful thing to do at that moment to avoid being fired?
Well, obviously the first thing that you need to do as an employee
Yeah,
who just opened a company, registered a company,
yeah,
the first thing that you need to do is to go to your employer and disclose.
right.
I mean, right now, if you are doing that, the first step is to go to your contract of employment
Okay.
and start reading that, because most of employment contract, they have something called restraint of trade.
Okay.
Some would have disclosure agreement, where you need to disclose various or certain things that are related to you as a person working for X company. I mean, this would be like, as you know, McDonald's right now is something like it's a property company.
Yeah.
Now, the moment you start going into a property company, it's sort of like indirectly competing with your employer.
Right.
So it becomes very critical for you to understand what your contract is saying, and then interpret that, analyze that, where possible, come to people like us to read that and make sure that you have the right understanding. If it's clear and it stipulates that you must report to Mr. X or position X, director, supervisor, you do that immediately. Because if you do not do that, you might survive for a week or for a year or for 2 years or for 10 years. But imagine if you get fired after 10 years of working for for the company, you lose all the benefits and everything that you've worked for over 10 years. So it's very critical that we firstly understand what are the requirements from the company before you can even go and register even for that company, because sometimes you register today, tomorrow you're excited to tell your colleague goes unknowingly, not knowing as to what might happen to you, then ultimately goes to HR and then it becomes a breach, which you get fired for. So it's very, very dangerous,
and yet there was no business actually that it started. There was no income. It's just a paper that you are now a director at your XYZ.
Yeah. The moment you register a company, you're a director of a business.
Right.
Automatically.
Whether it's trading or it's not even trading.
Whether trading or not trading, because
you're in trouble if you haven't disclosed it.
No, if you haven't disclosed it, you are in trouble, because the risk of the company is not you only spending their time, but it's also with you gaining certain insights, gaining certain knowledge, that you might actually use to compete with your very same company. So this is where the dynamics are and what we need to be careful of.
So Sole, this might come to you as a surprise, but I'm sure you're dealing with people all the time, so I'm sure it might not be a huge surprise for you. If the contract does not exist anymore in the place where I stashed it in my wardrobe,
yes,
right? What should be my recourse? So now this is a surprise. Now, TJ, I actually need to read my contract, but it's not there in the wardrobe. What should they do? Where can they get help?
Yes. So, of course, people lose those things.
Yeah.
Every single day. Sometimes people don't even remember that they have signed a contract.
Oh yes. but speaking on to that one, so
yes,
you are excited of this new job, which was maybe 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you just signed everything. You didn't read the special clauses that you're talking about, the restraint, the disclosures. So this could be actually extremely foreign to many people.
TJ, that is the honest truth. That is the honest truth.
Right.
I've sat in over 200, 300 disciplinary hearings.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that about 70% of the people don't even know what the contract says.
Oh, wow.
This is the north of 70%. I'm not talking 70% minus. This is plus.
Yeah.
This is worrying. This is worrisome.
Because I was going to ask you, how many of these cases do you get? This is extremely worrying.
They're not so many, because it's not a lot of people who are in South Africa. As we know, we have a need to have entrepreneurs. It's a need of the country, not just South Africa, but the whole Africa as a continent. We have a need for entrepreneurship. But then it's very funny that, like last year, I fired a very senior employee. Here I'm not talking about somebody who got matric, or I'm talking about somebody who's at the highest level in the company, second to the CEO.
Sure.
The very same person, as you spoke about excitement, got excited and signed the contract.
Right.
And then didn't realize that there was a requirement for him to disclose that he is a director, even though he was not running the business. Here's the thing that I actually need the viewers, the listeners to listen to, and to actually take note. Like you said, they must take out the books, notebooks. So this person has got this company registered under his name and the wife's name. He is employed, earning a salary every single month. The wife is running the business.
100 grand. They're earning 100 grand.
Yeah, north of that.
Yeah.
the wife is running the business.
Right.
Now the wife comes to the very same place where the husband works, tender for certain work.
Oh no.
Then in that tendering process, she gets the job, and now indirectly, the husband is competing with the employer, because now he is the director, but he's not running that business.
Yeah.
So when that was found out, the employer said, no, you can't work with this person anymore. You can't, because now this person is where it's actually doing business with the very same employer, the same company that we're doing business with. So during the time that we pay him for, it's easy for him to go and do his own business and create those links and connections, and tomorrow he might come and compete with us.
Yeah.
So that is the problem.
So sorry, I want to speak to two people now. I think we spoke to the person who's starting off.
Yes.
And what should they do? Now, let's talk about, I am in business 5 years.
Yes.
It's been going honky-dory, and now all of a sudden there's poor Soli and poor TJ. They're giving me this information. I'm like, I'm in trouble. Should the person still go to their employer and do the right thing? Because now there's a 5-year history, the business has been running, and they didn't, I don't want to say they didn't know, they were ignorant of their contract. And now they're hearing this and they're like, yes, this is good information, TJ. But what should I do?
No, it's TJ is there. I mean, I personally know of a few people like that.
Sure.
And I'm glad that you asked that exceptional question. Look, you said if you didn't know, obviously ignorance is not it's not an excuse. You cannot use that as an excuse that I didn't know that I was supposed to disclose, whereas you signed that contract. Remember, by signing that contract, you are acknowledging that you understand the facts, you know the facts, and you agree.
Sure.
With the facts. So, but then if there's two things here. You can either go to your HR before they find out, which makes your situation better.
Okay.
Most probably your employer might say, if they are strict, they might say you must choose. You must choose one of the two. If they're not strict, because I have seen that.
This is almost like you're going to your wife and you say, I've got a second one there. And your wife is saying, you need to choose.
No, it's like that. Right. You definitely, the employer that I've dealt with gave this person an option to choose.
Right.
Not to say go and close the business. The option was resign as the director, let your wife run the business.
Okay.
And then you continue working. By so doing, we know that you don't have any interest in the business.
Right.
So, but for employers that are very strict or you're not sure, it's always important to be the first one approaching the employer. Because if you are the first person to say to the employer, hey employer, this is what I'm doing, I need your advice, what should I do? You're not coming in as if now you're forcing the employer to say, it's either I continue or I'm leaving, that kind of a thing. So the first step, if you've been working, you have a business, you have a truck. I know a lot of people have trucks, or they have property, and they sort of run that. The moment they realize that, or maybe the company start to change the policies and the procedures, and it becomes a requirement for disclosure, then most people would definitely need to go to the employer and say, I see there's this policy, or I've realized just now that there is this. What should I do? Please advise me. Some employers, they do allow people to run their businesses as long as they're not in contravention with what they are doing. They're not a competition. Yeah. But however, even if they might allow that, it's still important to disclose.
I think this disclosure could also be terrifying to a lot of people. Especially if you do not have a good relationship with your line of manager. In this case, would you recommend, I'm going to throw in my 2 cents as well.
It's all right, yes.
Would you recommend that this is a email, or would you recommend this is HR, let me take you out for lunch to the canteen, and then you verbally state your case, you lobby and say, my friend so-and-so, what should be the recourse? What's your view? I'm of the view that if you're not so sure, rather do the investigation of the paperwork, your contract. Also double check to see what's happening within your business. You're not potentially the only one. And then have a conversation. before you put something in writing, because I'm of the view that once you put it in writing, it becomes tricky.
Yes.
And based on the response that's going to come, you can quickly go back home and rectify whatever that you need to rectify. But I'm not the expert here. I'm just going in with, I've been a manager before in the past. And I'm a very relational person. That's where I would start off from. Because there's no commitments here.
Yeah, no, of course, I hear you.
How would you recommend that, someone who's already running 5 years, how should they manage this?
Well, obviously, I like your approach.
Right.
Personally, I like your approach. Most employers with open door policy, that is the kind of approach that works.
Right.
But then you have, employers who don't, like you said, you don't have a good relationship maybe with your superior and things like that. If the contract stipulates, remember the contract it's very clear, unless if you found a contract somewhere and then you just, copied and pasted the contract elsewhere.
Yeah.
But normally, a contract will stipulate how it's supposed to be done.
Sure.
Those are good contracts. It will stipulate how should the reporting be done. Should it be done in writing?
Is this the contract or in the policy now?
In the contract of employment.
Okay.
Yes. It will say disclosure of information. For example, the clause would probably say, should you be a director of a company, you are required to disclose in writing to the CEO of the company.
Right.
And then it might also mention that the CEO will then will make a decision on the matter, right?
Don't they normally say the CEO will have a discretionary decision?
Of course, of
Right.
course.
So which means it can go either way.
It can go either way.
Sure.
Ultimately you'll find yourself between a rock and a hard place. The moment you've been running a business for 5 years and you've been working for a company for 5 or 6 years. But if you've been running a company, let's say you've been running for a company for 5 years and you just joined this company 7 days ago or a couple of months back.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little bit easier in that you've been running this business and you realize that later after the contract, because normally your offer letters don't talk about that.
Sure.
Offer letter don't talk about those disclosure clauses and things like that. They never do. They never do unless if they go into like serious detail. They never do that. Then in the contract, that's where it will stipulate that this is what is required. So, but the purpose of getting into a business ultimately is not for one to stay in the employment, is to grow the business.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So if your CEO or director say no, then you have to make a decision. You have to either leave, go and push your thing, or leave your thing and continue working. Ultimately, the decision is, sitting with one person, which is the big boss sitting upstairs.
Yeah, but now is that not where most of the bigger challenge comes in, Soli, now, where people are caught up with, I don't know whether this will work.
Yes.
But let me try it out. Yeah?
Yes.
Whilst I'm trying it out, I'm still employed here. But now if I tell them that this is what I'm doing, that's a ticket for already firing me.
Yeah.
But what we are saying right now today is, it's not a ticket to be fired. There is a process.
There is a process.
And follow that process. When you follow that process, chances are you can be allowed to run the two for as long as you're not interfering with your employment. That's what I'm hearing you say.
No, of course. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
It's not a sin. It's not a contractual sin.
Yeah.
To run a business.
Right.
Because I'll throw this one. Some people, some employee would actually join a marathon, like say Comrade Marathon, while they're working. Remember, Comrade Marathon has got some financial benefits as well.
Yeah.
And further to that, you will have to apply for leave to go and practice and to go and run probably for a week. The very same thing similarly could apply to a business. So you starting your business is not a ticket for you to be fired. So I do recommend and I do encourage people to start businesses, even if they're employed. However, before you continue, before you start, talk to relevant parties first and make sure that you understand your obligations. The moment you understand your obligations, then you are able to then act accordingly. You can defend your job, protect your family from hunger, from poverty and all those things. But as human beings, we do have wishes. A lot of people wish that they could start a business X and Y and Z. And that doesn't mean that they will become unemployable.
Right.
Like you and me.
Right. Yeah. So I want to bring in a cool conversation here, because I remember when I was employed, my employer at the time was Barclays.
Yes.
We then later on changed and we went into ABSA.
Yes.
And at a particular time of the year, I stand corrected, I think it was just before the share results would be announced. HR would send out all these emails, and they would basically ask us to disclose any new ventures, anything that would jeopardize with the share announcements. So it was, the letter would almost say, you need to declare any of your interests.
Yes.
And it was always an opportunity, if in the previous years you haven't done that, to now do it. It was a very short form.
If you're in property investment, at some point or the other, you have had to evict someone. And I know, my friends, it is a painful exercise. But I'm here to tell you that for the last couple of years, I've been using a company that is called Expello. Expello, basically what they do is that you pay them a monthly fee, and over and above that, whenever you get a delinquent tenant, they will come and evict that individual free of charge, because obviously you've been paying, right? And over and above that, you don't have to do anything. But guess what? I have managed to organize a good price for you. And the link here that you're seeing, which is called expello.link./TJ Tribe, gets you a great discount from Expello. So my friends, don't be caught with your pants down on your tenant. Just Expello them with Expello. It is TJ. Let's go back to the video.
But what I understood within that form was they were asking, does this interest of yours take away from the 8 hours that we are paying you for? But well, it wasn't the 8 hours for me when I was at Barclays, because Sunday nights I was flying out to Kenya, to Botswana, so they were taking more. But there is a senior manager you expected.
Of course, there's no more time for you.
There you go. Now, having said that, there is a clear opportunity from the employer for you to disclose. So in the 5 years you haven't disclosed. Now all of a sudden now you're disclosing it. If the relationship is sour with your manager, and I want to bring it back to when I was employed, I think at some point I became arrogant because there was a bit of money coming in.
Yes.
You know that's sport in life.
Yeah, no, of course, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just being real here. And I had friction with my manager. Even though the forms were signed, and even though HR was aware of my business, my line manager at one point, he put me in a corner and he says, you're not performing based on the fact that you've got your own business going. Yeah, I'm like, but how do you know that? That my business is doing well. And I forgot solely that we were friends on Facebook.
I like that. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So now, you see where I'm going with this now, right?
Yes, definitely.
So, granted that you have done the right things, who else should you block? Or how louder should you be in your succession? Because now, people are human. You're going to forget to send an email. You're going to forget to maybe do the report on a particular date. All of a sudden, the conversations in the office are very much around, he's doing this because he is on his way out.
Yes.
But which is not the fact. But to me, when my manager started doing that, I became arrogant. I'm like, this guy. he doesn't even earn the amount of money that I'm making now. And I'm making it a favor for me for being here. I love my job. Those are some of the things that started running in my head. I'm human.
No, money does that,
right?
To a lot of people.
And I went home, I told my wife.
Yeah.
And my wife says to me, "You're being arrogant." So I'm like, damn it.
I agree with your wife.
I need to go back. So I went back and I apologized.
Yes.
But the relationship was tarnished. For the next 2 years whilst I was still employed, my relationship with this boss, we had like maybe about a 6-7 year relationship before that, which was amazing, almost like a brotherly relationship, right? But from there onward, it got tarnished. Now, I wanted to bring the conversation solely off. Once you have done the right thing, what else should you be aware of so that you don't get into soup? The stuff that you are seeing, because you do this all the time.
Yeah. Look, that's a very good question. I must mention that, I mean, ultimately, the first thing like we discussed is that once your contract of employment says disclose, for me, that's enough. Whether your business is doing well or not is none of.
So it's okay for me to be now on social media. Hey, I just bought another building.
Of course, it is. I mean, the moment the employer is away, the reason why this clause is put in is simply just to safeguard the company from competition.
Right.
That's the biggest reason. That's why in most employment contracts, you will find, along with the disclosure, you will also find a clause that talks to restraint of trade. Because they will know, as the employer, you will know that whom to actually invite to certain meetings and whom not to invite to protect your business. So the moment you are doing great in your business and you are an employee, you have disclosed. I think the best thing to do is just to continue to do what you're doing. Unless if, of course, what you do requires your time during working hours. Because surely employer will audit those things.
Sure.
Employers have got the right to go to your company phone to investigate what is happening.
Right.
They have a right to go through your computer, your laptop, to see as to whether you are putting the time that you have agreed in your contract to put and what that they are paying you for.
Yeah, I hate that one.
Yeah. So so they do that. Right. They do that. Even with me, when an employer tells me this employee X and Y and Z, the first thing that you do, I always tell them, look, you have a right, this is company property, and if it's a company property, you have access to that. It's not a personal property. So if you are doing well, look, you can shine all you like, as long as you have declared. Okay. No one will hold that against you. Nobody. Yes, there will be 1 or 2 people that are jealous that you're doing well.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's life. You know, some people don't want to see other people better than where they used to be.
100%.
Yeah.
But solely in this hard economic times that we are living in, surely employers should be encouraging people to do more side hustles. Do you not think that they should be more open for those kind of initiatives? Or is it wrong for them to actually take a stance like that one? What's your view as a labor expert?
Look, as a labor expert, employers...
Considering our hard economic times.
Considering our hard economic times. Remember, the hard economic times are not... they're not only affecting the employees themselves alone. Right. They're also affecting the employer at the same time. So this is like a balancing act that employers need to talk about or need to think about. Yeah. Myself as an employer, I know that if one of my employees has got a side hustle, normally I do not have a problem with that, and I also want to encourage other employers not to have an issue with that. Yeah. As long as the targets are being met, because you must know, the moment you don't reach your target, you don't meet your target as an employee, and you have a side hustle which is doing great, the first thing that we think of is your focus has changed. Yeah, your focus has changed. Right. You're no longer serving the contract like you agreed. You're now serving your own interests, and therefore there's no need for you.
And we're still paying you.
And we're still paying you, for that matter. But you're not paying. Your job is not paying us what we expect and what we want as a business. But however, with this being said, as employers, we need to be open to the suggestions of employees starting something. And with that, it doesn't mean that we must relax. We must continue to investigate such things if they happen, because I can tell you about my experience.
You also had a laptop experience?
Not necessarily a laptop experience. As an employer, I had a problem with one of my employees,
right?
Whom immediately after leaving the business, they wanted to come back and poach the clients that we had, right? The reason why there is that, there is restraint and this disclosure effects and things like that, is to protect the business. Because immediately, if we didn't have those things, our business would have gone to the dogs altogether. So, but because we had those clauses in line, in the contract, and we had to remind the employee that, hey, remember, you signed this, you agreed to this. So, the thing is, the moment this, the dynamics are quite a little bit difficult to deal with, and also it might create a bit of administrative work. But with that being said, the economy still requires entrepreneurs.
Sure.
Entrepreneurship is required. So to advise employees to do that, I think it's a good thing. But just to manage it, it's a little bit of a nightmare. It's very difficult.
I want to come back to a full circle here. So we started off by having the conversation of how do I start? And we're at the pinnacle now where this guy is doing amazing things.
Yeah.
But if one is caught on the wrong side of the law, of the rules and regulations of his engagement with the employer, can you help them?
Look, personally,
can they just come in here and say, so this is where I am, you're a labor expert,
yes,
CCMA or something like that?
They can come in,
yeah.
TJ, they can, without a problem.
Sure.
Like I mentioned, our business model is business focused.
Sure.
It's B2B.
Yeah.
However, when individuals have issues,
yeah,
we always like to help.
Sure.
But obviously, our limitation is we cannot approach your employer and things like that. We can only advise.
Yes, yes.
And then, should you require to approach your employer, we have partnerships with various law firms,
right,
whom we trust,
right,
with labor law.
Right.
We can essentially go and represent you with the employer, send the letters, discuss the issues and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So Solo can't help you directly, but however you need, you're most welcome to come through, and he can direct you into the right directions. So you're now running a business. These conversations that we are having now, if it is a conversation that needs to be facilitated, and the employer all of a sudden woke up and then he realizes 10 of his key men all have Ubers running, and he now needs to figure out how does he best work around the existing policy and procedures and the contracts that were previously silent on these things. Is that something that you can facilitate?
No, definitely. That is definitely what we can do.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we do almost on a daily basis.
That's your bread and butter.
That's our bread and butter. They are, like we're talking about Uber, they are other multinational transportation companies, transporting humans, something like Uber, I can't mention names.
Sure.
Something like Uber, where employees would also want to do Uber.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we facilitate with them to see as to how can we assist both parties. Sometimes parties need to come together and work together.
Yeah.
Because you as an employer having to fire 10 people at the same time, the cost of that is enormous.
Right.
And that's why most of the times it's always best for employers and employees to sit down, talk about issues. Hence, when you go to CCMA, the first thing that you do is conciliation. You don't get in and start fighting and arguing and deciding who's the better arguer and who's not.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing from you as we land the plane, I am hearing that we have a preconceived idea that if we are to share our side hustle, we're going to get fired.
Yes.
And you are saying, no, that's not the fact. However, you need to do the right thing, check your contract, have the conversation with the employer. You may be fired, you may not be. However, there is a way out, and the right thing is for you to follow what's within your contract. And obviously, you cannot give advice or direct someone if you don't read the contract, because you don't know what's in the contract.
Yes. Look, some employers don't even have this clause.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
Does it make it right or not? Surely if you're doing it, there's nothing wrong with it.
Sure. For as long as it is not taken away from your 8 hours or whatever hours that you're employed for.
Look, as long as there's no contract, there's no policy, there's no practice that is well known by everybody in the business,
sure,
that you're not supposed to run any business, there's nothing wrong.
Right.
But employers, they have a right to to add to the contract new clauses in the contract.
At any given time.
At any given time.
Sure.
It can happen at any time. So it's critical for people to talk about these things and to actually come back to your point. We live in information time. Information time, fifth industrial revolution right now. We share things on Facebook. You might think that everything is fine, is hidden, but your client shares about you and your name on their social and say, TJ was servicing me on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've seen people fired who work in furniture business. On weekend, that person applying for leave, going to assemble certain things that they were purchased at a furniture store. Right. I've seen that happening.
That's an awkward one.
Yeah, people gotta be very, very, very careful about that.
So, my good friends, thank you for being here and giving us some insights. And my good friends that are watching, I want to say to you that this conversation has turned its ways. You might have assumed at some point that we were saying that you should not start a side hustle. We want you to start a side hustle. And at some point it may have sounded like we are saying, don't tell your employer. And so don't be an extremist in both of these cases, right? If you had to take away anything out of today's session, I've been in this position before, and so has many other people. Number one, what you need to do. So let's wrap it up. Number one, check out your contract. Number two, if you're not able to understand your contract, look out for Soli or your own Soli in your area. Say, please read out to me, interpret to me. I've got many lawyers that help me to interpret certain contracts. I'm not a lawyer, so they help me to do that. So don't be shy to go that route. Once you jump into business, you're going to find out the more people that you have around you, that's how better you're going to grow, because those people can do amazing things better than you, yourself, right? Then the third thing is that consult your employer, right? Have the conversation. From having the conversation, then map out a way. I remember at the end of my employment, I resigned because I wanted to resign. However, the business needed me. They contracted me on a double-digit payment on a contract basis for 6 months because of how important the project that I was dealing with at the time. So there I was, 2 years of having pain with my line manager, and I now says, I'm throwing in my towel, and his boss's boss says, no, you can't let Taurai go. Let's pay him whatever he wants, but we want him for 6 months so that someone else can come in and he can shadow him. So it was a humongous benefit to me and my family at the time, because that money helped us to leapfrog the business. But it was very clear I had another business and they knew about this. So my good friends, I'm hoping that this has been good information to you. Let us know in the comments where you are. Let us know how we can help you, if we can, or we'll direct you like what Soli said. And as I land the plane, Soli, I want to ask of you the one question.
Yes, sir.
At the moment, You I know of you as a good reader. What book are you reading right now that you can give out to us for us to learn from at the moment?
Well, right now I'm reading The Diary of the CEO.
Right.
By Mr. Butler.
Right.
Yes, so it's obviously I'm trying to develop my skills as a CEO.
Sure.
And be a better person.
Yeah.
Be a better business person. And yeah, that's what I'm reading right now.
I'm a great advocate of continuous learning. That's number one. Number two, aim to improve yourself 1%. By the time you get to the end of the year, we won't be able to recognize you. Until we meet again, my good friends, it is I, your boy TJ. We'll see you in the next video right here on the TJ Tribe. Boom, boom!